Hello and welcome to NCBI Labs.
Good afternoon, everyone. You are very welcome to another NCBI Labs live event, which brings us up to live event number 47 in our series. This is JP Corkin, which is today from the Labs team. I'm standing in for my colleague Jude Maher, and today I'm joined by our regular panelists Sean Doran, Daniel Dunn, and Joe Lonigan. So I hope everyone listening in is managing to stay safe and well. With the continued vaccine rollout and gradual easing of restrictions, we hopefully have some brighter days to look forward to. And of course, the fine weather we've had over the last few days is certainly helping too. And as always on the live event, the Labs team is here to help you stay up to date with the latest technology news and product releases for people with sight loss. So what do we have coming up for you in the show today? Well, in a short while, as part of our regular Meet the Team segment, we are going to be talking to Lisa Brown to hear about her role in NCBI. So Lisa is a community resource worker based in Kerry, who no doubt many of our listeners will be familiar with. And after this, you're going to be finding out about banking online and managing your finances with the very popular Revolut app. So for example, how do you set up a Revolut account? What services are available and how accessible is the app itself? Well, to help answer these questions and more, we're going to be joined by Sebastian Hamilton, who is Head of Public Affairs at Revolut Ireland. And also, to provide us with an insight into the Revolut app from the perspective of a user with a vision impairment, we're going to be joined by Breandan Ward, who has worked in London and New York as a banker and is now a consultant on leadership and development and disability empowerment. Along with this, we're back with our regular technology news section, where I'll be finding out about what were the main take-homes from Apple's Worldwide Developers Conference last week.
If you have any questions or comments throughout the show, you can send an email to labs@ncbi.ie, or you can leave a question or post a comment on our Q&A panel, and we'll make sure to get right back to you. But to start things off this week, we are going to be chatting with Lisa Brown, who is a community resource worker who's based in Kerry. So Lisa, you're very welcome to the live event today.
Hi JP, I'm there. I'm here. Can you hear me now?
Nice, Lisa. I can hear you clearly. Yeah, you're very welcome to the show, Lisa.
Thank you for having me, and hello to the rest of the Labs team and everyone listening.
Great to have you with us. Lisa, to start off, could you tell us how long you've been with NCBI and whereabouts in Kerry you're based?
Yes, so I've been with NCBI since 2004, which is quite a long time. And I am based out of our office in Tralee. So with my colleague Geraldine Gallagher, we work with adults throughout all of County Kerry. And then some members from our Cork team work with children and young people in the county.
Yes. And I wanted to go back, it's quite a while then, Lisa, 2004, so quite a long time you've been with NCBI. Could you tell us a bit about your background? So before you joined NCBI, so where were you based, or what were you training, for example, or were you working elsewhere?
Yes, so I had just finished my degree in social work in the US. So I majored in social work and minored in gerontology, which is the study of aging and looking at the biological, psychological and social aspects of aging. So I moved to Ireland in 2001 and I started working with the HSE with children and families. And I was with them for 2 years before a role came up with NCBI.
Right.
So I applied then.
And what does your role typically involve today?
Okay, well, as you said, I've been with NCBI for a long time, and actually what has kept it quite dynamic and interesting and enjoyable is the fact that the services that we've provided since 2004 and how we deliver those services has changed quite a lot over that period of time. My main role is around meeting people and adults who've been affected by sight loss and discussing what challenges they're facing and how NCBI services can support them. So I provide practical support, such as an appropriate magnifier that I can assess a person for. I can demonstrate shop aids and appliances and provide advice on adapting items in the home. I give information on benefits and link people in with the other NCBI services, such as the labs, our library, our shop, our advocacy department, and I link people in with other appropriate services outside of NCBI. So, on a day-to-day basis, I'm providing practical and emotional support with individuals. And with each person, you discuss how they're coping and what individual needs there may be. So the solutions that you provide for each individual can be quite different. I'm also in the process of completing my certificate in orientation and mobility training, so that'll be another that will be part of my role, you know, once that has been completed.
It sounds like an extremely diverse role, at least. To what extent would you work with the local IT trainer in Kerry?
Yes, so we've worked quite closely with Brian Manning over the years. He has, you know, pre-COVID, he's been able to come down to Kerry and link it with him. So it's quite actually a close relationship in terms of helping individuals to have their technology needs met through that support and through labs.
Excellent. So you've been put in touch with Brian from time to time then, Lisa?
Yes.
Yeah. I think a lot of our listeners would know Brian through many of our live events in the past. He's quite frequently on the talk about Braille and Braille devices. Lisa, is there anything in particular that you're working on at the moment? Any projects, for example?
Yes, so, you know, I think everybody in NCBI and a lot of other organisations has been impacted by COVID and had to look at how we deliver our services. So something that I've been involved in since last year with a working group with 3 other colleagues is developing an online version of support groups that we were previously able to run in person. So the programme is called ADAPT, Solutions for Managing Your Sight Loss, and the programme covers a range of topics from understanding low vision, tips and aids to make the most of your vision, technology, mobility, coping with vision loss and managing emotions, and of course NCBI services. So between myself and my other colleagues in the working group, we've been running the group since the start of this year on a national basis, which means that people from all over the country can be referred into a group that's facilitated by myself and my colleagues. And it's ran over the phone once a week or online for people who are accessing technology. It's ran once a week for 6 weeks. And if there's anyone out there who's interested and would like to find out more, they can certainly contact their local community resource worker or the information line to be referred and linked in and learn more about the programme.
Excellent. It's certainly one of the benefits, isn't it, of having this offering available online so people can take part in that.
Yes, certainly. I think how we use technology and the way we've been able to adapt services has been quite interesting over you know this last time period of coping with COVID, and I think that really it will stand to us and our services going forward, and has developed much faster actually than it would have if we didn't have that experience.
Lisa, thanks a lot for taking the time to join us today on the show. It's much appreciated, and giving us an insight into not only your work but also the ADAPT program that you're involved in delivery of. Just as a recap, can people get in touch with you, or let's get in touch if they want to maybe avail of this program and get involved?
I think I believe there was recently something that went out in the Insight magazine. And so really, if they speak to their local community resource worker or ring the information line, they will be able to learn more about the programme to see whether or not it's right for them before being referred into it. So that's probably the best bet, is to link with their local community resource worker. All of the resource workers throughout NCBI have been informed about the programme, so they'll all have a good idea about it.
All be aware of it. Excellent. Lisa, thanks very much for joining us again.
Thank you, and thank you for having me on. Thank you.
So that was Lisa Brown there from our Tralee office, and telling us about the ADAPT program as well. So please do get in touch with your local community resource worker if you want to find out about that program and get involved. Okay, so now we're going to move our conversation over to Revolut. So no doubt many of our listeners will have come across a very popular Revolut app before, and perhaps many of our listeners will be using it as well to manage their finances and make transactions. But for those who aren't familiar with Revolut, what exactly is it, and how does it differ from many of the more traditional banks? Well, to help answer these questions, this week we're going to be joined by Sebastian Hamilton, who is Head of Public Affairs at Revolut Ireland, and Breandan Ward, who will be able to give us an insight into using Revolut from the perspective of someone who has a sight impairment. So you're both very welcome to the show today, Sebastian and Breandan.
Thank you.
Great to have you with us. So, Sebastian, we might just come to you first. Can you tell us a little bit about Revolut, if you don't mind, for anyone who's not familiar with it?
I think in a way it's going to make more sense once Breandan has kind of explained how he's able to use it and how people are able to use it on a day-to-day basis. But just to give an overview, Revolut is an e-money institution, which is not the same as a bank, although it's regulated by the same regulators as regulate banks. It's licensed in the UK and in Lithuania by the relevant regulators there. On a day-to-day level, the services we offer are very similar to your standard bank account, payments and spending and sending money and moving money. Really, the principal difference is the way in which customer money is protected. With e-money institutions, the money is kept in a kind of ring-fenced, standalone, separate bank account. In our case, with JP Morgan, and depositors have first call on that. And with the legacy banks, your listeners might know there's a thing called the Deposit Guarantee Scheme, where the government of a particular country guarantees that money. But on a day-to-day level, for kind of sending and receiving and spending money, they're very similar. And we issue people a debit card, and they use that and the app to make transactions. Okay,
excellent. And Sebastian, maybe just staying with you, what are some of the benefits of using Revolut versus a traditional bank account?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's I don't want to take too long, because I would say there's a lot. And we have, we now have nearly 1.5 million Revolut customers in Ireland alone. That's nearly half the adult population. So obviously they all think there's good reasons. I think the key ones are, number one, lower cost. With the standard account, there's no monthly fees, there's no quarterly fees, there's no standing charges, and there's no charges for kind of the day-to-day use of your card or basic transactions. So, it's significantly cheaper. You can instantly send money to anyone else who has Revolut anywhere in the world in seconds. That's one of the other really big attractions. When we start traveling again, you get cheaper foreign exchange. Even if people aren't on Revolut, if you want to send money to people in Europe, we have a thing called SEPA Instant, which is an instant money transfer to over 2,500 banks and payment institutions in Europe, which is, I've used that and it's fantastic. We have open banking, which lets you link your other bank accounts through your Revolut app and track them through there. We have a fantastically popular offering for people who have children. We have a Revolut Junior account. So for children aged 7 to 17, they get their own spending card, which is kind of controlled and monitored by the parent through their Revolut app. And my two older kids, who are 7 and 10, they have it and love it. And then just a variety of other kind of additional features. We have one-off kind of virtual cards for online shopping. So we create a virtual card in the app. You buy whatever it is you're buying on the internet, and then that card number is destroyed, so it can't be kind of used fraudulently. And there's various levels of customer rewards. There's in-app budgeting features. There's kind of clever ways to save money in a separate vault. So those are just a few. I could be here all day talking about the benefits, but I'll stop there.
Maybe just take a step back for a moment, just in terms of setting up Revolut for the first time. What are the requirements? For example, identification.
You'll need national ID, which for users in Ireland is a passport, because we don't have a national identity card yet. So you'll need a valid passport, but beyond that, really, you just need to download the app and have your passport handy, and ideally in date, which I think a lot of people. I know that my passport, I suspect, is a good bit out of date now, because nobody's been going anywhere.
Exactly. So they're the requirements, and what are the benefits then, Sebastian, of obtaining and using a Revolut card versus just using the app only? So what are the benefits of using the card that you just mentioned?
I mean, to be honest, I think to a large extent the two go hand in hand. Revolut is a digital product. It's designed for the mobile phone age and the smartphone age, so they're meant to work hand in hand. There's some of the additional benefits of the Revolut card are that you can, for example, if you've lost your card, you can instantly freeze it from within the app. But to be honest, whether there's plenty of people who essentially use it as an app. But obviously, we're in an era still where shops, generally a lot of places like cards, or people find it convenient to carry a card. But actually, I think I don't think there's a massive difference in terms of what you're able to do between having the card and using the app. And I said, I know people who have Revolut and don't carry the cards with them. I do, and tend to, I like to just be able to tap the card and go.
Yeah, I suppose. Sorry, this is Sean, Sebastian. With the Revolut card, I mean, it can also sync up to your GPay and I suppose your Apple Pay also, and you can tap from your phone. And once you have the card.
Yeah, that's the thing. So I think we would view the card as a kind of helpful physical extension of the Revolut app and product. But you can use Revolut through the app. You can use it through the card. Obviously, for the Revolut Junior, that is a physical card. But that's we found that particularly helpful because and again, I'm sure your listeners will be aware, a lot of places now don't take cash. So where I am in Sutton, the Starbucks and the Insomnia don't really like to take cash. And for anybody who's under the age where you can have your own card, that's been really difficult. Whereas, that they have the Revolut Junior card, and I actually got a sandwich for lunch in Starbucks here earlier, and all the kids that came in after me were using their Revolut Junior card. So, there's a use case for both. It's really whatever is kind of handiest and most convenient for the customer.
Yeah.
And I know my niece and nephew have the cards, and they absolutely love them. And is there a difficulty with adding the card for parents, and is there a minimum amount of money that has to go onto it as an initial sort of payment?
No, it's I mean, again, I found it incredibly simple to get my kids onto Revolut Junior, and there's no minimum amount that has to go on at all. If you're using Revolut Junior on the standard account, which is free, then there's a monthly limit of how much you can put on, of €40. So probably better for younger kids. If you're at an age where you want to be putting more money onto your kid's card, then you can use one of the paid options. We have a kind of entry level paid option called Plus, which is €3 a month, and that gives the kind of unlimited then spending on the Revolut Junior card. And what I find fantastic about it is you just have total. So my kids have freedom to spend their own money, and they're really learning fast about this is their money, and they can see, if they're spending it, that it goes out of their account. But I'm able to monitor that, and I get a notification telling me where they've spent money and when they've spent money. And there was actually recently a very funny story, and a lady tweeted that she has a coffee van. And two kids came up and they'd lost their parents. And one of them said, "Can I buy something on my Revolut Junior card? Because then they'll get the notification and they'll know where we are." Now, I don't think that was the intention when we built it, to find lost children. But look, it's an incredibly, it's one of the added benefits. And like I said, Revolut Junior is hugely popular.
Yeah. Just while we're just
I'm
before
here, JP.
this question. Oh, Brendan, is that Brendan now? Excellent.
I snuck in on the phone line because I was on
very
the
good.
MS
Very
Teams connection. So here I am.
Very, very timely, Brendan. I was asking Sebastian a moment ago about for someone who wants to get started using Revolut for the first time. Okay, so as Sebastian pointed out, it's a copy of a passport that's required. For someone who's using a screen reader, perhaps like yourself, Brendan, how straightforward, or not if it's the case, is setting up Revolut for the first time?
What I found very helpful and still find very helpful and appetizing about Revolut is the fact that it's very much a mainstream application. So as Sebastian was outlining, it's become very popular in Ireland, and often in the tech world, for those of us with sight loss, you're using, in my case, iPhone with Voiceover. You download an app that everyone's talking about, and what you often find, it's not working with Voiceover, and I guess that's what Ncbi Lab spends a lot of time trying to help service users with, is to overcome some of the accessibility challenges. From the very start, when I went to Revolut and downloaded it on the App Store, like any app that you can just type in REVOLUT, download the app. From the start, I found it very accessible. I didn't actually need to be able to see my screen at all, so I do have some residual vision. But Voiceover worked fine. It took me through the steps of getting set up. So once you download the app and open up the app, it asks you for some initial details, which you'd expect to give. And then you have to go through that ID verification process because for security reasons, they need to know you're a real person. And once you get through those setup steps, and this bit I couldn't believe when I joined a few years ago, you're straight away set up with a Euro account and a GBP account, a Sterling account, with your IBAN details, your sort code and account number for the Euros, and the same for the GBP account. So I couldn't believe how quickly that happened, and that was just the standard free account, so I didn't have to pay anything. So all of that downloading, opening, verifying ID, and then landing with my Euro and Sterling accounts was very smooth. The one thing I did need some help with was, when you're taking a picture with your iPhone, if you don't have good vision, you often need to get help from someone sighted with that, and that's something that's quite common to lots of apps where you need to do some kind of ID verification. So that's the only thing I'd say to have someone on hand for, to help take the picture of your passport or whatever you need to do for that ID verification stage.
And Brendan, I presume that's just needed once, isn't it? And it's not needed again.
Yes.
Yeah. Brendan, you mentioned a moment ago about you said when you set up, by default you have a standard account. Now, are there other accounts available with Revolut, and what kind of features or benefits do they offer?
Well, I started with the standard account, and it was quite persuasive because the standard account is free. So it means that in my case, I ventured on wondering, like most people listening in would wonder, it's okay saying that for sighted people, but how is it going to work for me when I can't see? So it really helps remove the barriers to entry, when you have a standard plan that is free. And that's what I used for the first while as I settled in. And what I got in that standard plan was essentially I got to spend money from my balance, I got to transfer money, and I got to exchange money up to a limit. So there is a limit. I think it's €1,000, something like that, of what you can do within the standard plan. So some scenarios that came up for me, same as what most people would have, we were clubbing together for a wedding present for someone. What do you do in the old days? Well, you kind of have to remember that I owe someone €20 or €100 or what have you. Because my family were getting on to Revolut in short order, we were able to start sending money to each other on Revolut. So you don't have to remember anymore, you don't have to go into different banks and fiddle around with all of us having different, bank accounts. We can just go on Revolut. The app actually can spot any of your contacts who are also on Revolut. So it's a bit like WhatsApp. You know, if you've got the phone number loaded in, it'll be able to see who else is on there, and you can just send money straight away with family members or friends. And so within, as I said, that limit, you can work away each month for free. There's also, after lockdown ends and we're able to travel again, there's another bonus, which is if you put money on the Revolut account, let's say you can, I'll maybe come back to how do you get money onto your account, because that's an important topic. But with your balance of euro, you can go abroad. So if you headed off on your holidays to another country, you could go to an ATM machine in that country and withdraw money, and it doesn't have to be euros. So let's say you went to London for a few days, you could go with your Revolut ATM card to a local ATM machine, withdraw money. And this is where I was won over. Normally that would cost you a fortune, right? Because you get a bad exchange rate converting your euros into sterling, and then you get a fee for an overseas withdrawal. And that's one thing I noticed was very different, in that the rate you get, that exchange rate, is the what's called the interbank rate. So it's the rate that the banks exchange at. So there's no kind of cut that Revolut's taking on that exchange rate. It's just the standard rate that they pay. So that's a much better rate to get. And you also don't get a charge on that. And there's limits around that. I think it's 200 for the standard plan, so there's limits to how much you can avail of these services on the standard plan. But I think it's a great way to get started. If you wanted to go ahead and start exchanging into other currencies beyond euro and sterling, you can do that. There's a lot of currencies. Sebastian probably knows the list better than me, but you don't have to stay in euro and sterling. You could convert money to US dollars, for example. So there's a lot of different options in the standard plan. And then if you pay, in my case, I decided to upgrade to the premium plan, which is about 82 euros, something like that, for an annual membership. That meant I had unlimited transfers that I could do. It meant that I could withdraw more money. I think it's 400 you get to withdraw each month for free from ATMs abroad. And another thing that was really helpful was the overseas travel medical insurance. So as part of the premium plan, you get coverage in terms of insurance for medical costs incurred overseas when you're traveling, and that was also a nice add-on. So for me, I've started using the premium plan for the last year or two, and it's worked out really well. And there's other plans, and I'd say for anyone interested, you can Google Revolut and look up reviews, and that way you can read the different feedback that other users have had.
It's worth doing. Great, thanks for that, Breandan. We did have a question that came in, which is as follows: how do I order a Revolut Junior card for my child? Now, I think we've already talked about some of the advantages of that. But how does someone go about ordering a Revolut Junior card? Perhaps Sebastian, would you like to answer that one?
Yeah, I'll jump in there. And the first thing I'll say is that it's been a year since I ordered my kids' cards, and and off the top of my head, I'm not going to be able to tell you. To be honest, the answer is with 99% of things in Revolut, if you go into the app and look for the relevant section, it'll guide you through the steps. The essential steps are fairly similar. You effectively click on the link that says Junior, and it offers you the ability to set up a Junior account. You'll need your child's passport as well, and you take a picture of them and send that in for verification purposes. But because a Junior account is effectively a sub-account of the adult account, so it sits within your account. It's not a separate standalone bank account. It's a very straightforward and simple process. There's a couple of designs of cards to choose from, so you get your child to choose which design, and that's it. I think on the standard plan you do pay a card delivery fee, whether it's as an adult or as a child, for the card. So I think there's a €6 fee to get the card. But certainly my recollection of doing it twice is that I think it's a straightforward process once you have an account set up, and in our case, worked very smoothly and quickly. And that's ultimately that's one of the fundamental elements of Revolut, is that we're trying to make everything simpler and easier, and specifically, the mandate from our chief executives to make everything 10 times easier. So, hopefully it's as simple and straightforward a process as that. And again, if you've opened a standard account and any questions you have, there is an in-app chat support function which should be able to immediately answer any questions.
Okay, excellent. Well, that kind of follows on to our final question here: is where can listeners go to find out more about Revolut, and if needed, then Sebastian, provide feedback regarding, for example, the accessibility.
Yeah, I mean, I think just in answering that question, if I may, just give a little bit of context about the kind of work on the inclusivity side and how much work has gone into trying to make it accessible as widely as possible, particularly to the visually impaired. And I think, I've been speaking to the development team over the last couple of days to really get into that, and two things come out. Firstly, even just talking to the team this morning, they genuinely feel that they have a moral obligation to make this product accessible, and that's just a basic standard right that all users should have. So they really believe that. But what I think is particularly powerful and important is that that's not just an aspiration, that is in their KPIs. So their quarterly performance is measured on 6 or 7 targets. And actually the first target on that list is accessibility support, and specifically that all our apps meet the W3C accessibility standards, which is text contrast ratio, minimum text size, color contrast, voiceover support, and keyboard navigation for the web. So that is absolutely baked into the DNA of the design teams, is that not only should they make this product accessible, but they must, contractually, and they will be measured every quarter on their performance in ensuring that it is accessible. So even at a component level, Revolut is kind of quite component based. The components are designed with accessibility built in. So then it's a bit like Lego bricks. As you start building them on, every brick already has the accessibility features baked in. And they, to be honest, they were absolutely delighted to hear I was kind of invited to join you and talk about this, because they feel that's a recognition of that work and that commitment. But the other thing that they universally said was, we really would love to get feedback on this and how we're doing, and are there ways we can make this better. So there's, probably the most direct and simple way, again, is if you sign up to an account, is to use the in-app chat function, and any specific feedback regarding accessibility will be fed back to the design teams and the people who are responsible for this. Equally, one of the design teams said that somebody had reached out on Twitter the other day, and it was escalated to the design team within a couple of hours. So, those will be the primary ways. To be honest, I'd quite like to explore further down the road, ways in which, we might formalize some kind of ability to give feedback as well from an accessibility point of view. The team did say, look, we recognize that in terms of accessibility, there's always more to do. You can always make it better, and they're focusing on the web app and improving the accessibility there, and on some issues in terms of mobile support. So, there's very specific plans every quarter for improving areas of that. But, in a sense, it comes back to Breandan's point, actually, that probably the best thing for people who haven't tried it is try the standard product. Hopefully it's simple and easy to join, and then engage with it through there. And that offers certainly the very direct way through the in-app chat of offering feedback. And I can tell you that the design team would love to hear from any of your listeners who feel that there are things that perhaps they should look at for the future, because this is something that really matters.
And Sebastian, if we get any feedback ourselves from our service users or even our own staff, we could possibly maybe email that, forward that to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I know I'd be delighted to do that. I'd be delighted to help, and to be honest, like I said, the team were really thrilled that the work they had put in, was proving useful and helpful, and are very keen to hear about ways they can keep doing that and keep improving.
Just to add there, Daniel here on the labs team as well, Sebastian and Brendan. Just to get into that junior on the app, it's through the hub portion, or if you can access the search feature, you can also type in junior and it'll bring you straight to the add the junior card part. So just to that question we got in, JP, that's where I found it.
Well, I'm glad somebody on the call could answer that question better than me. But look, to be honest, I think I'm going to try and desperately dig myself out of that hole by saying that hopefully we make it all so simple that you don't even have to think about how it's done. You just do it. And
it was just handy I had the app here beside me at the moment, Sebastian. So it was
great. Well, listen, thank you for the helping hand there, Daniel. Much appreciated.
That's great, Sebastian. Thanks a lot for giving us an insight into Revolut today, and also, of course, to Breandan. It's great information, and it's interesting that it's not, as you say, it's not just a moral obligation. It's a contractual obligation as well, that you're making that the app as inclusive as possible for all users. So it's great to hear that. So many thanks to both Sebastian and to Breandan today for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the invite.
Thanks, JP.
Okay, so we're now going on to the next part of the show, which is technology news. To start with, last week, Apple kicked off its annual Worldwide Developers Conference, or WWDC, as it's more commonly known as, where it revealed updates that are set to come to the platforms that power the iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, Apple TV, and more. So the event was held in Apple Park campus in Cupertino for a second year running because of COVID restrictions. It took place last Monday, 7th to Friday, the 11th of June. And as I say, second year running, it was an all virtual event. So I think we're actually going to bring Joe in first of all. So Joe, would you be able to tell us about some of the highlights from last week's WWDC, if you don't mind?
Good afternoon, JP. As usual, they have their developer conference this time of year to get ready for the launch of iOS 15 and give everybody a snippet of what's coming. So they've made lots of improvements, probably too many to cover even today, but I suppose I'll talk about some of the more common ones. FaceTime got a couple of fairly big improvements. It now supports spatial audio, so if you're using AirPods Pro or any headphones that support spatial audio, you will sense what direction the person that's speaking, their voice is coming from on the screen. It shows more people on the screen. Didn't specify how many, but it does show more people on the screen for people that can see. It also has a share play option, so it means if you want to watch programs like on Apple TV with somebody through FaceTime, you can do a share play thing through the Apple TV. Also, other apps are going to support this, such as Disney Plus and Netflix. So yeah, there's a few big improvements to FaceTime. There's also in portrait mode, which is mainly for the FaceTime video calls, just to keep you in focus in the screen and help you blur your background. So FaceTime is going to work in portrait mode now as well.
And I understand that I think spatial audio is going to be coming to Apple Music too. Is that right, Sean?
That's correct, JP. So it's going to be coming to Apple Music, and it's going to be like, they seem to be focusing on spatial audio. That means like it's going to be used in probably things like Netflix apps eventually, and Apple TV. And spatial audio is like if you've ever been to a cinema and have surround sound of multiple speakers orientated around you, and we've all been in people's houses who have surround sound, and you can hear things coming from different directions. So what the spatial audio does is it sort of mimics that effect, but with your earphones. And so if you're listening to music, you're going to hear that sound stage of instruments in certain places and maybe vocals coming down the middle. It's a much more pleasant experience. And like I said, if you're listening to calls, it might place people in different locations around you. So it doesn't sound like everything's coming sort of towards you. People are spread out. It'll make sort of conference calls much more pleasant. But that spatial audio technology, I assume it'll eventually sort of work its way into orientation and mobility apps, and it's already sort of happening. So it is quite an interesting new emerging technology, and or a reuse of an old technology. So it's going to be mixed throughout all of Apple's products and lots of different organizations' products eventually.
Currently, Soundscape are testing spatial audio, as you said, along with some other orientation apps. I think it will be a very good option going forward like that, and CNI will also be using it to locate objects. So apart from just using it in mainstream ones, the ones specifically used for blind people are going to be a big advantage going forward.
The combination, Joe, I suppose, of LiDAR and spatial audio within your own phone or your iPad is going to be very sort of interesting in the next few years.
Exactly, yeah. And to finish off the FaceTime comments there a second ago, they're also going to allow external Android users and Windows users to get a link and use FaceTime. So it'll help not to make it exclusively just to Apple users. So you can join from the web now on FaceTime.
So it's kind of like FaceTime is also like, it's sort of like moving into the space that Zoom and Microsoft Teams are in, that you're chatting with your friends with your phone numbers as normal, but you might send out an invite from some. Exactly, outside the Apple ecosystem. They're letting people in.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's alien bodies. So what it means is, like, if you send out a link, and then that person, if they have an Android phone or a PC, they follow that link and it'll open up through their browser, and then they've joined that family call or that meeting within FaceTime, even though they don't have an Apple device.
Exactly. Yeah, that's going to be great. I suppose they've seen that WhatsApp video calls and Zoom, Teams, all these things are taken away from their space. So they found a way of letting people in, but still keeping their privacy intact.
Very clever.
So privacy is a big thing, as you know. So yeah.
Another thing that stood out for me was the announcement of Apple Live Text. And what this is, I know it's probably into the realm of where we have with seeing AI at the moment, but it is going to digitize the text that picks up in your photos. So, particularly for, maybe you're getting memes or whatever sent to you, things like that will now be, you'll be able to interact with those and find out what's going on in it. So that seems to be like another new development that they've kind of announced, and it wasn't much fancy made about it, but it is there.
Yeah, and sorry, Joe. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, the big thing about that, I suppose, especially for anyone that's visually impaired, if you're going somewhere that has a Wi-Fi, you get a Wi-Fi code. You can just point your camera at the Wi-Fi code, and you can copy and paste the text. So you can copy and paste it into the Wi-Fi settings and set your Wi-Fi up a lot easier, rather than having to ask somebody for the code all the time. So that's where it'll come in handy, I think, going forward.
And that sort of feature's been moved into explore images with Voiceover is going to be a new feature coming out. So while live text is, you know, it's going to be a live situation. If you have a photograph that you've taken and it's saved in your phone, like in the past, I think we could go into like the gallery within the phone and tap with 3 fingers, and it would try and give a description of that image. But now we're actually going to be able to explore the image by moving around, and if it's an image of a receipt, it'll turn it into like a table where you're sort of moving through elements of a table, retrieving information, or if it can find maybe faces or give you more information, it's going to return all that. So Voiceover's ever expanding. It's not just even a screen reader anymore. It's got all these extra features and functionalities that's sort of making it, you know, a universal tool.
Another thing that jumped out, I think, now it's a few years away for us here, but at the moment, what they're planning in iOS 15 as well, that as part of your Apple Wallet, you can have your ID, you know, for flights at airports and all that. That'll be there as well. So putting your passport in digital form, carrying it on your phone. They seem to be opening that up in America. So you probably say maybe that's something that's going to come down the tracks for Ireland in a couple of years' time.
That'd be very helpful.
Yeah, and there's an in-focus mode coming, which I think has been pushed by people working at home. So you can set it up so that you don't receive work emails outside working hours, things like that. Also an overhaul of the notification settings. So I suppose there's an onslaught of notifications coming into people's iPhones now, and to keep them looking at their phone, keep them online, you can set up certain notifications to interrupt you at less intrusive times, maybe times that you're not busy during the day. So the intelligence of the phone will recognize which notifications are important and which aren't, and it'll give you those notifications at a more suitable time.
Yeah. These sound like old Android features to me, but I'm not going to go into that.
Oh, and Siri is going to work offline for certain commands. So if your internet is down and your Voiceover is turned off for some reason, you can just ask her to turn it back on. That'll be nice.
Yeah, that would be actually quite useful.
Yeah.
I believe there's some enhancements coming to the Apple Watch too. Joe, you might.
Yeah.
Some of those.
Yeah. So this one could be quite useful. They haven't specifically said it's for anyone that's visually impaired. It's generally for people that have maybe upper limb issues or have issues touching the screen of their watch. But I can see it becoming really useful if somebody's using their cane, but they don't want to use their 2 hands, like hold up their left hand with their watch and touch with their right hand to maybe use a orientation app on the phone, or maybe turn on or off music, or maybe answer a call, or whatever they may be doing at the time. So now you can do with the gyrometer and the heart monitor and whatever other sensors are being used on the phone, it can detect whether you're doing a pinch or a squeeze. So you could do a pinch to maybe stop a timer, for example, or you can do a squeeze to move the cursor to the right. Then you can also do a shake of your wrist to maybe perform a different action. So look, maybe if there's 3 different actions, that, as you know, 3 or 4 different actions can do a lot of Voiceover. So if you can do 3 or 4 different actions with the new assistive touch feature, it will allow us to do a lot of Voiceover going looking ahead. We haven't had a look at these features aren't out yet, but this, I can imagine, assistive touch will be fairly useful.
Yeah. Excellent. Joe, as well, the Apple HomePod, I understand, has been released in Ireland today. Have you come across this in terms of, like, do you know how it's going to be, or what benefits it's going to offer over for your standard smart speaker, or Amazon Echo, Google Home?
Well, we were hoping this would have been released at Christmas over here, but eventually we got it 6 months later, which is great. We were really looking forward to seeing it. Benefits over other speakers, it's debatable if it's better or worse than any other speakers, but it is a smart speaker which is voice activated, and there, by all accounts, has a great sound, and it's really good for playing if you're an Apple Music subscriber. It also has a few features like intercom, so you can make announcements. You can say stuff like, "Hey Siri, announce the dinner's ready," or whatever it may be at the time. You can also like any other smart speaker, connect it to your HomeKit in your house and turn on or off your lights, or maybe talk to your front door, turn your alarm on and off, that kind of thing. And there's a handoff feature on it. So if you bring your iPhone close to the HomePod Mini, you can transfer what's playing on your iPhone or iPad onto the iPod Mini, and it'll play on the speaker instead. So it's a small device, a little bit. If anybody's familiar with the size of a Echo Dot, maybe Amazon Echo Dot, it's similar size to that, and it's round with fabric on the outside. Comes in space grey or a white color.
Yeah, so probably quite like the fourth generation Amazon Echo, Joe.
Yeah, something similar to that.
Yeah.
So I suppose half the size of a can of beans, isn't it?
Yeah.
Something similar to that. Yeah, so it retails about on the Apple website around €99, and you can pay an extra 15 for a 2-year warranty for tech support and accidental damage, so which is quite reasonable.
Okay.
So yeah, that's the iPod Mini. I'm looking forward to giving it a go.
Yeah, so perhaps someone perhaps who uses an iPhone, iPad wants to stay within the Apple ecosystem when they're using a smart speaker. That's probably
exactly. It doesn't work with all the older iOS, like, so you have to have a more updated iPhone to work with it. So you can iPhone 2020 SE upwards. You'll have to have something like that, or iPad 7th generation upwards.
Is it kind of iOS 14 and higher, Joe, or is it?
Yeah. That's as far as I'm aware. That's iOS 14 and higher. Yeah, but you will be updating as you go along once you have that. So it's iOS 14.5 at the moment. So that's where we're at the moment. 14.6 actually, and it'll be 15 next.
But I think there's a 14.7 coming as well.
14.7, yeah, it's coming fairly soon.
Yeah.
Just moving on to the next feature as well, the Firefox. I believe, Daniel, there's a new version of Firefox that's going to bring a new design and some new tabs as well.
There is, yeah, and I suppose particularly low vision users will probably benefit greatly from this. Firefox has really took to watching how people actually use the browser, and took the whole thing back to the design team to say, right, we need to look at how to make our browser that bit more presentable, less clunky. What they've done is in Firefox version 89, which is released there on the 1st of June, they've made the tabs stand out more. So the tab that you're on, it doesn't just look like another one that's shoved up there into the toolbar of tabs. It actually sits out and floats over the others. And that's also the spacing for that is bigger, so you're getting a little bit of a bigger title. So that's quite good for somebody with low vision, that they can interact with that a bit more easier. Also, they've redesigned the whole menu system layout. So getting around the menus and options, the most used functions are out there up front and foremost. So if you're going from section to section of the browser, it's quicker and easier to find the way around. And I have to say, just seeing some of the video presentations on it, it does look very good. It's visually appetizing as well. Now, I suppose it's so new out that I haven't heard any feedback from our screen reader users to notice whether there's much improvement there for screen reader users. But I'm sure we're going to hear back on that, because I'm aware that Firefox is one of the more popular browsers out there.
Be interested to hear people's feedback. So if anyone chance to try it out yet, please and tell us.
Because we all remember back when it was a Firefox 57, when I think they were calling it the Quantum browser. At the time, it would only work with JAWS 2018 and above. So that's about 2 or 3 years back now, more than that. So we haven't heard any feedback about this yet. So if anyone has any older versions of screen readers and they're having issues, they could let us know. That share that information amongst people.
Yeah, exactly. Be great. Suppose the email address for that is labs@ncbi.ie. We'd love to hear people's feedback and see what the experience is out there, and if anybody has gotten the new version 89 down and has given it a bit of a road test, we'd like to hear feedback on that as well.
Excellent. Thanks a lot for that there, Daniel. We're going to move on now to our tech news and tech help rather, and a quick tips section. Joe, I understand you have some handy Siri suggestions to share with us this week.
Yeah, so seeing as we're on the subject of Apple and Siri, so I'll give a couple of Siri quick tips. If you're a keen user, we'll say, you might be even traveling on a bus or whatever. Sometimes you might know exactly where you are. So I've often been walking and I might have took a left turn or a right turn down a laneway or a little street, and you mightn't be exactly sure you're on the right track. So you can say something like to your phone, you can ask, where am I? Or sometimes you're on a long journey on a bus and they're not announcing the stops, you can ask, where am I? So I'll give it a go and see how we go on here.
Messages.
Where am I?
You're at 20 to 99 The Meadows, Kellen.
Yeah, so as you can hear, it announces out your address, and you have a fairly rough idea if you're on the right track. So that's one thing. Another thing, I'll give one more little tip. If you use the reminders app, sometimes you can make good use of the reminders app if you're going to the shop, or if there's always that one thing you keep forgetting and you say, next time I'm out, I'm going to remind myself to get that. So you can do reminders via location. So if you have a supermarket close to you and you know the name of it, you can say something like, remind me when I get to Aldi to get sugar.
Which location? Aldi on West Street, Aldi on 9 Behernatownish Road, Aldi on Hebron Road, Aldi on N24, Aldi, Western Road on Western Road, Aldi on 29 Iker and CT, Aldi on Company Wexford, Aldi on 26-27 The Glen, Aldi on Arc.
The first one.
Which location?
Oops.
Aldi, N24, Aldi. Aldi, 29 Iker and CT, Aldi Western Road, Western Road, Aldi Western Road, Western Road, Clonmel, Middle 30 kilometers. Reminder is set for tomorrow.
Okay, it's a reminder. Normally, when I say the first one, it picks out the first Aldi.
It never happens live, Joe, does it?
Power of live recording. Yeah. So, but the next time I walk to Aldi, it will give me a little notification, a little vibration, and I look at my phone and it'll remind me to get sugar. So that's my two quick tips for this week.
Joe, thanks very much for running through those two quick tips. And as a reminder to our listeners, you can subscribe to our technology newsletter to find out more about these tips and others. So thanks a lot, Joe, for those. Just before we finish, as a reminder, if you require any technical support from the Labs team, you can contact our help desk on 1800 911 110, or send us an email to labs@ncbi.ie, or to avail of the wider services from NCBI, you can call us on 1850 33 43 53, or send an email to info@ncbi.ie. If you'd like to make a donation to NCBI to keep our services going and live events going too, you can visit our donate.ncbi.ie website. Also this week, as discussed in previous live events, we'd like to point out that the Labs team are currently in the process of building an Ncbi Smart Hub. And as a reminder, the Smart Hub will essentially be a way of availing of and finding out about Ncbi services through an Amazon Echo or Google Home smart speaker. And in time, the smart speaker will also provide information on eye conditions, allow users to make appointments, service users to make appointments, or even speak with staff using their smart speaker. So at the moment, we're looking for testers to help out with the development of the Ncbi Smart Hub and provide feedback. So if you're interested, please send an email to smarthub@ncbi.ie. We'd certainly really like to hear back from you about that if you're interested in getting involved in the testing. So what's coming up in future live events? So lots of interesting things coming up over the coming weeks, including an interview with Glenn Gordon, who was actually one of the earlier developers of the JAWS screen reader. So we're hoping to have him joining us in about 2 weeks' time. We'll also be joined by the RNIB Tech Talk team to find out about their podcast. And we'll also be finding out about how to make the most of your smart speaker by, for example, doing things like how to create an Alexa shopping list, Our next live event will be taking place in 2 weeks' time on Tuesday, the 29th of June at 2:30 p.m. As a reminder, if you want to stay up to date with the latest technology news and find out about what's coming up in future live events, you can just subscribe to our technology newsletter by going onto our website, ncbi.ie, or sending an email to labs@ncbi.ie. So a great resource there, the technology newsletter. So all that's left for me to do today is to thank our panel of Sean, Daniel, and Joe, our guest speakers Sebastian and Breandan, and of course everyone for listening in as well. So take care, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the week, and we look forward to having you back with us in 2 weeks' time for the next NCBI Labs live event.